Εσύ έχεις κατεβάσει στο smartphone ή tablet σου την εφαρμογή του LGR. London Greek Radio 103,3. Μας φέρνει πιο κοντά.
On FM, on digital radio, on your mobile and online. This is London Greek Radio.
LGR 103,3 FM, ελληνικό ραδιόφωνο Λονδίνο. Είμαι Βασούλα Χριστοδούλου και είναι μεγάλη μου χαρά και τιμή σήμερα που φιλοξενούμε την Dr. Ersin Hussein, Senior Lecturer in Classics at Swansea University. And before I welcome Dr. Hussein, I would like to thank our Cultural Councillor Marios Theocharous for the introduction and for the amazing Cyprus Archaeology Study Day, where I actually met online Ersin with her great presentation. Good afternoon, Ersin. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Vasoula. Thank you, and good afternoon to you and your listeners as well.
Thank you. Now, Dr. Hussein, am I pronouncing your name correctly, first of all? Ersin Hussein, yes?
Ersin, absolutely. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Excellent. Yes, and I have to say that you are so nice, because although don't feel well today, you're feeling poorly and you have a bit of cough, you still kept our appointment, and I'm very grateful. And please feel free to cough if you have to. And I will give you a little break. So now I'm sure our listeners will be understanding.
Oh, really? Thank you so much. I must thank you for that, because I have asthma and I spend my life apologizing for coughing. So I really appreciate it.
Well, there's nothing you can do. Yes, please feel free to have a little break if you have to. So, Doctor, may I call you Ersin?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I know you did ask me before. Okay.
Yes, please
Thank
call
you.
me Ersin.
Thank you, Ersin. Now, could you tell us, firstly, a bit about your background and how you became involved in the field of ancient history, and especially Cyprus?
Yes, well, to be honest, it's quite a simple story, in that, if we're going right back when I was making my choices to study for my GCSEs and my A-levels, there's a world of opportunities out there, and the advice I was always given by my mother, and I have to mention her, was just do something that you love, because you will find, when you find your passion, you will find a way to make something of it. And no one ever gets to their ripe old age thinking, oh, I wish I spent more time at the office doing something that they didn't like doing, So it was all about pursuing a passion and an interest. So I fully appreciate that I was in a very privileged position to be, given opportunities to study at university and study the ancient world. And at every step of the way, I found something new that I found really interesting and I wanted to learn even more about, and I just took it as far as I possibly could, and I didn't know how to stop.
Well, that is called passion.
That's how that happened. And the interest in Cyprus is because my family are from Cyprus. I was born in the UK, but there's we're speaking to a wide community here on radio, and we all know that no matter how far you move away or your family are away from what you consider your homeland, or a country where your family are from, you always feel that pull, and that really came through with my studies, and I just couldn't get away from it, and I wanted to find out more.
Thank you. Thank you for choosing this subject, because it's so interesting. And I must say, we can see your passion, because your presentation was amazing. It was so clear, the clarity. You explained everything so nice, so thank you for that. And again, we thank Marios Theocharous, our cultural councillor. Now, could you introduce us to the Egypt Center at Swansea University and tell us about its significance, especially in the terms of its in-house museum?
Yes, absolutely. So at Swansea, we're like a little bit tucked away in southwest Wales, but we have this in-house museum, and it basically means a museum that's situated in the campus, on our Singleton campus. So it's not in the town centre, it's away from the wider public. But it's a really small museum that has about 6,000 Egyptological and classical artefacts housed in it. These came here to Swansea in the very early 70s, in 1971. And it became a museum that was open to the public in 1997, and some people sort of moved that date a little bit later to 1998. There's all kinds of questions about the firm opening date. But this museum it's a research centre, but it's open to the wider public, and it has a global reach. They do a lot of activities online. They do a lot of activities as well where they take resources out into the public, just to share this knowledge, because being a museum, being an institute of knowledge, it's not about keeping it and gatekeeping it for a few people. It's actually about learning from the wider public and getting a sense of how people feel the stories of these objects that, quite frankly, come from a whole host of landscapes that aren't originally Swansea or from Wales. You know, it's about telling the story and the histories of these objects and of the communities that they are from and connected to and a part of. So doing this public engagement, getting this material and information out to the wider public, whether it's in Swansea Town Centre or on an online platform globally, reaching out to people in, say, Egypt and beyond, it's a really important aspect of the work of the museum. So it's a really wonderful resource that we have, and I love working with the people there and with the collection as well.
So how can we find more about this little museum, which I don't think many people know about it? I must admit that I didn't know about it till your presentation, till the Cyprus Archaeology Study Day. So if someone wants to find out more after they listen to this show, is it any website that they can... Okay, can we... Hear the website?
Absolutely, I can send you the link. But
fantastic.
Also, it's the Egypt Centre on website is online for people to engage with. Absolutely.
Fantastic.
I think what puts people off is, or can be quite confusing, is that it has the name centre and not museum, so people wonder what it is. And we've done a bit of polling around this, and I understand that the name can not be quite clear. But the other thing is, as well, is you hear the word Egypt and you assume it only has Egyptological things in, but it doesn't. It doesn't. As well.
Because now you are going to tell us about the Cyprus, the Cypriot Asian collection, and the Egypt Centre.
Yes. Yeah, so there are a few artifacts from Cyprus in the collection, and it really is a few. I cannot stress this enough. We have 5 on display now, but really how all of my work with the museum came about was I joined Swansea University as a lecturer in 2018, I think now, trying to think back that far. And when I turned up at the university, I went to the museum and I said, "Come on, have you got anything from Cyprus in the collection? I can't see anything on display." I knew the answer would be yes, because pretty much every museum we have in the UK context, there's something from Cyprus in there. Let's face it, because these collections are built up from explorers or people going out into the Cypriot landscape and building up their own private or very small collections and bringing them back to England at a time before really archaeology was sort of a professional activity. So I knew there'd be something there, if that makes sense. And this very much is tied to the sort of history of of Cyprus being a colonial landscape, being ruled by being a British Crown colony, that type of thing, and particularly because of the extensive sort of network of military networks that were across the island at the time. So, of course, it's quite typical that you get British officers or people from different aspects of that world going over there, and whilst they're taking part in their sort of official duties, they might be sort of collecting or getting involved in sort of activities that perhaps in some instances they really shouldn't have been doing this stuff, and I think it's really important that we tell those stories because it tells us so much about Cyprus, not just back then, but we have lessons to learn about Cyprus today, and it's a really important part of that story to tell.
So where did they keep them all this time before they ended up at the center or museum?
Well, everything was in storage, the Cypriot artifacts, the few that we have in there. But we had some wider discussions, and I started when I was introducing my teaching, and I was bringing sort of Cypriot focused things into the syllabus. That's been one of my missions to do. I started getting students to come into the Egypt Centre, and we'd get the objects out of the archives, and we'd do object handling sessions, that type of thing. So the museum were really fantastic in letting me get the students involved, thinking about how we can embed using these objects and others into our teaching, and of course, supporting my research of these artifacts. And then we did some public events where we ran some polls and some questionnaires, and we asked people, well, do you want this stuff on display? There's no point in one person like myself charging into a museum and saying, we need this on display, this is important. We have to ask the public, because these institutions are for the public. So that's one thing that we really have been very proud of, is that we've constantly been having this conversation with the public, whether it's through online forums or talks or any way we can gather feedback from people. And the answer was yes. They sort of said, okay, we really want to see some classical artifacts, and the Cypriot artifacts are part of that classical collection. We want that on display. So we applied for some funding. We got that secured in 2020. Of course, the pandemic hit, so that was great fun. Everything happened in terms of preparing for this permanent display that's now in the Egypt Centre. Took place during lockdown, so the curator, I must give him a big shout out, Dr. Ken Griffiths. He was fantastic. He had special permission to go in, and he set everything up, and we managed to do things remotely in terms of getting things set up. And then we had this display where we had all these different landscapes represented through these artifacts that are connected to Egypt, that actually shine a light on the wider Mediterranean. So we have Greece, we have Rome, we have Sudan, we have Nubia, and then of course we have Cyprus in there as well. And we're just encouraging the wider public to think about the connections between these landscapes and giving them an opportunity to look at these objects that way. So that's a starting point, really.
Wow. Do you get any Cypriot visitors?
I don't know if we've had any independently from people I have engaged with and invited in and encouraged to come and see. But that is, I suppose, the next stage of the work that I need to do, because I'm mindful that not everybody can get to Wales. Not everyone knows where this museum is, and I just want to get the word out there as much as possible and find ways to actually get information about the artifacts out of Wales as well, so that people who are connected to Cyprus or Cypriots themselves, if they want to, they can engage with these artifacts and connect with them. And I'd love to hear from people about what it means to them. Does it mean something special to them to engage with these objects?
Yes, it is. I'm telling you.
Yes.
Yes, and we would love if we have the opportunity to come and these items, it will be amazing. Maybe, I don't know, the government or the Cyprus High Commission, they can arrange something like a minibus, you know.
You're pitching already. This is wonderful. I'd love this. I'd love to get. It's all down to funding. I would love to secure. I'm being really honest here. It's how academic life works. I'd love to secure a huge grant where I could get people, transport people over to Wales and to come and see this collection and to bring activities outside of Wales as well. So all of this is ongoing. It's in the mix, I promise you, but it takes a long time to build up. But
yes, it will happen. I'm sure it will happen because you really have the passion, with what you are doing. You're putting your heart, basically. So that's important. You will get the results. I'm going to be nice to you and allow you to have a 2-minute break.
Oh, fantastic. I'm going to have 2 minutes of coughing.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Enjoy your break.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And we are back with Dr. Ersin Hussein, Senior Lecturer in Classics at Swansea University. I hope you enjoyed your break, Ersin. You had a bit of water. So I was going to ask you, because I saw about this oral science. You had research, and you had the public to vote, and you had the results. I mean, could you tell us? I'm not quite sure what it's all about, so can you enlighten us?
Absolutely. So this Oriel Science is it's a sort of centre in the middle of Swansea, and it's a really great open big space. And what they do is they call for academics to, pitch an exhibition that represents their research. And the aim of this is to show the wider public what research is going on at the university. And it's really to bridge that gap between the wider society and what's going on in universities, because a lot of people, quite rightly, they might not know what's going on in a university, and they want to know how money is being spent and what type of activities are taking place and what research is happening, because of course this all has a wider impact on society. So when I saw the call back in 2022, I thought, okay, I'm going to put a pitch in so I can get something to do with Cyprus and these objects on display in this space, because one challenge with our museum is that, it's not in the town centre and not many people will know or be able to get there. So I submitted a pitch, and what I wanted to do was to have a display where the wider public could have a look at one representation, one object in replica. So we can't have the original objects in Oriel Science, but I wanted to show different representations of the object and get the wider public to vote on their favourite. So we had things like some archaeological illustrations, so some really highly sort of technical drawings of the artefact. The artifact, before I carry on, it's this really beautiful sort of terracotta horse that dates to about 600 to 500 BC. So it really is, from that sort of classical, a little bit earlier than that archaic classical era of Cyprus's history. And it's this really beautifully painted, sort of quite rudimentary looking thing, but it's just adorable, and most people assume it's a toy because it's quite small, but really it's quite a typical representation of just themes that are quite important to ancient society. So horses are associated with agriculture, warfare, that type of thing. So what we did at Oriel Science was we came up with these archaeological drawings. We did some 3D sort of prints of the artifact, so people going in could pick them up and handle them. And then we had a 3D scan of the object created, and people could have a look at this by turning the object around on a sort of screen, like a tablet, that they could pick up and engage with. And over the course of the year, I get all these voting stats coming in from Oriel Science, from their visitors. And over the course of a year, so Oriel Science, this space, it opened up in 2023 in July, and about 864 visitors went to that space in that time. And most of them who voted for the tablet. They found it more engaging and interesting to look at a digital form of the object and sort of move it around on a screen. So one, it was a really useful exercise to get the wider public to sort of be aware that the Egypt Centre existed, and there's some objects from Cyprus. But for me, it's a really fantastic opportunity to actually see, what do the public want? What do they like? So I can think about the resources that we can then develop in line with the museum collection. Again, it's all about asking the public what they want, what they want to see our energies and our money and our funding going into, so that we're developing the right things, so that it works for the public, essentially. So that's what that is about. And the display showing the Cypriot artefacts, it's one of many. There's all kinds of displays showing and highlighting research from Swansea in that centre. So there's all kinds of things from the biosciences, there's engineering displays, there's all kinds of fun VR displays, that kind of thing. So it's a really fun place to go with the family, and that's really what it's pitched at, to try and attract the wide range of the Swansea public to go in and enjoy these resources.
Yes, I think you are convincing us, for sure. You're doing a great job, And just to emphasize, to give more emphasis, perhaps we can convince the appropriate people that we need to convince. How do you view the diaspora of Cypriot antiquities in Swansea and other parts of the UK? I mean, what significances does this have for the global understanding of Cypriot heritage?
Oh, goodness, so much. I mean, one thing I love about studying the ancient world, I mean, just for context, my teaching at the university, I teach Cypriot ancient history, and I embed that into the syllabus, but of course I teach quite general, overviews of Roman history and aspects of Greek history as well. But what's really important when we look at the ancient world is that it's a really dynamic space for us to think about and confront some challenges and think about some of the things that matter to us most in today's society. There's some really important threads that run through from antiquity relating to human behavior, resource management, how we see ourselves in the world. So when we actually look at the history of, say, a collection like the Egypt Centre, and we think of that bigger picture of collections which have Cypriot artefacts in, it really is important to be as transparent as possible and to tell as much of the story as we possibly can about why these objects end up outside of Cyprus, because it actually relates to so much that is important about Cypriot history. We're talking about an island that has been conquered and sort of used for its really abundant resources, and because of its position in the Mediterranean since antiquity. And the way in which this has played out throughout history is a really interesting pattern to observe, and there are lots of things that we could perhaps reflect upon carefully about this. And of course, when we're looking at that, the history of why people are in this landscape in the late 19th century, the very early 20th century, we're getting these stories of these uneven power dynamics in a lot of cases, and that's telling us the story of Cyprus in many ways. We're having people, they're utilizing their military networks or their social networks, because they may be in office, they may be holding particular administrative posts. they're connected with other well-to-do, learned individuals, and they are collecting artifacts, moving them around, etc., etc. And the more we do this, the more we tell these stories, the more we think about this, the more we're giving space to what about the Cypriot voice? You know, what is actually happening to the communities out there? You know, and we have to shift things a little bit and actually give space to the island itself and the people who inhabited that space at the time. So this is what this is all about, and it's a very important thing to do. It has to be done very gently, and it has to be done as part of a continual thing. You can't just do it once and wash your hands of it and say, oh, I've done it, we've studied this. You know, we constantly have to revisit and rethink about how we're looking at these things. So that's why it's really important when we're thinking about, you know, the history of the island in antiquity, how people have engaged with the ancient history in more recent years, and what it means to us today.
Exactly. And to understand today, we must learn about our history. I think it's very important. Now, what are the next steps for the Egypt Center regarding, in general, but also specifically the Cypriot collection? Yes.
I mean, with the Egypt Center, I'm situated in the Department of History, Heritage and Classics. So I'm not part of the Egypt Centre, but I work very, very closely with the staff and volunteers there, and they are constantly innovating. They're constantly, you know, engaging with the wider public, thinking about their displays and the activities that they're doing, and their research is phenomenal, the stuff that's coming out of the centre. One thing that's happening this year is that they have been preparing for some time now for a complete gallery refit downstairs. So the museum will be closing at some point over the coming year, where they will get that refurb underway. Again, that's been done with a lot of consultation with the wider public about what they want it to look like, and, you know, what would work well for different types of visitors. So that's one of many things going on. With regards to the Cypriot collection, I've got we embed a lot of the work that we do with the museum as part of our studies, because we are training up the next generation of people who want to work in heritage and in the museum sector as well. I've got a student project starting imminently, and the aim of this project is that the students attached to this, they're going to be assessing all of the stats and the activities that we've done so far for relating to the Cypriot artifacts, and they're going to be working with the education officer at the Egypt Center, again another fantastic colleague, and one thing they're going to really be focusing on is they're going to be reviewing activities that they do with schools who come and visit the Egypt Center, and we're going to think about ways we could perhaps develop some activities. So we've got school children engaging with the Cypriot artifacts as well as other things. The Egypt Center, on average, they have about 4 schools visiting a week. So the reach is quite, you know, important in terms of the role that this museum plays in the Swansea context, and getting young children really interested in ancient history and in all these things to do with the histories of collections and the landscapes that these objects are from.
This is very, very important. I would say crucial. And I was about to say this, that the schools, you know, need to see the students. So hopefully, the government can't arrange this, because it's so important. And there are so many Greek schools. Not only for the Greek kids or Greek Cypriot, Greek Cypriots, but also for, in general, I'm sure anyone will be interested to find out more, but especially the Greek Cypriot children, Turkish Cypriot, so it would be a fantastic,
Yes.
Now, before we close, how can the public support this important work?
what you can do is you can email me.
Yes.
And you can tell me yourselves what you would like to find out, if you'd like to get involved, anything. And if you'd like to, you allow me to name check you or provide an anonymous quote from the wider public. In the work that I'm doing, that's one thing. And when I say in the work that I'm doing, it's in applications that I'm applying for, because, as I say, it is so important that we show that the wider public want this initiative or these types of initiatives to happen. The other thing is that I have a survey that I circulated as part of the talk that you came to see at the study day that was supported by the Cyprus High Commission. That program just looked so fantastic, didn't it, in terms of all the things that were being showcased. And one thing I can do, if this is sort of appropriate for your listeners, is I can send you a link to a form where people can provide anonymous responses and feedback as well based on this interview today, and that would be the type of thing that would just help absolutely enormously. So yes, that's one thing.
Fantastic. Yes, I'll be very happy to do that, and I can share it on my social media. I'll be very happy to do that. And for anyone else who would like to contact you, then I can give them your email address as well.
Please do.
Okay.
Please do.
Okay, that's great. A last message before I let you carry on with your rest, hopefully.
Last message to everybody.
Yes, for everybody.
Well, all I can say is thank you for having me on. I'm always surprised when people want to hear me talk about this, because I realise that this is something that's completely my passion, but it's such a privilege to be given space to talk about something that I love doing, and researching ancient Cyprus, teaching it. I don't consider myself an expert in any way. I learn so much from my students. They ask me the craziest questions, and it prompts all kinds of really interesting discussions. Same with the wider public. It's fantastic. So thank you so much for having me on today. And I hope to take this further.
Yes, we do it. When I promise something, I'll do it. So we'll get in touch, and you give me that link and I will share it. And anyone who would like to write to you, I will share your email, to support this great work. Thank you so much, Ersin.
No, thank you so much. And thank you to all of your listeners today. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Have a good day.
On FM, on digital radio, on your mobile and online. This is London Greek Radio.